Good evening, Washington Township. I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Education to order. Statement of meeting notice. Adequate notice of this meeting was given to the public 48 hours in advance of the date setting forth the date, time, location, and type of meeting. Notice was sent to the Daily Record, the Observer Tribune, and the Washington Township Clerk, and was posted on the district website at www.wtschools.org. All please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Moving on to President's comments. Good evening, Washington Township. The 24-25 school year has officially started. We hope our young learners and teachers are off to a strong start and are getting settled into their new classrooms. I wanted to take this moment to address the transportation issue that came to light last week. When Interim Superintendent Kopax was unanimously selected by our board to be our interim, she came into this district effective July 1st and immediately got to work doing all the things new superintendents do. Layer on top of that a brand new math curriculum, new food service, new resources, multiple large-scale referendum projects, some other issues that arose that are public, as well as many that are not public. Last but certainly not least, the first school year plan with 15-minute longer days, 10 minutes earlier and dismissing 5 minutes later than last year. Many people, including myself and probably everyone here tonight, know that our school district has one of the shortest days in Morris County. So last year, when it was announced by our previous superintendent that we were going to add 15 minutes of instructional time, it was welcoming news. It goes without saying that Long Valley and the surrounding area is geographically long. Our school district has 4 different school campuses. We have student homes that stretch from Port Murray area to the Hacklebarney Black River area, with a mountain and a valley between them. We also have a bus sharing contract with West Morris Central. Our school district has to plan our school arrival and dismissal so that all 4 K-8 schools and West Morris Central can have proper busing while managing a fleet of 35 buses. The effort to increase school hours and instructional time, which is not a small feat, unfortunately had some downstream issues. For those of you saying it should have been figured out before school started, that's a fair point. This is not an excuse, but mere an explanation on how the issue came about. We had a previous superintendent who announced the school hours change, was allegedly told about the potential concerns, but left the district over the summer and was not here to implement the change. The first few days of school always take longer, with everyone getting comfortable, young ones unsure where to go, parents taking pictures of their children, etc. These brief pauses are expected, but compound as the process is underway and buses make their stops. Possibly chalking it up to new school year slowness, but by the 3rd day, West Morris Central explained the afternoon buses were making it to their campus extremely late, and it was becoming a big problem. On the 4th day of the school year, our superintendent advised we needed to load the buses a little bit earlier, as buses were rolling even later than we had planned. For those who complained the message from our superintendent was not clear. Remember, this issue arose on the 4th day of school. We as a district needed to figure out if the bus route just needed time to settle into its efficiencies, which come naturally with repetition, or if this was a larger scale issue. I have heard complaints that we are gaslighting the public, that we were making the school day shorter than last year, that we're cutting into lunch and recess. None of these are true. Many of us have children and relatives in the district, some of which were impacted by this change. For the first-time parent with children in kindergarten and everyone else, we acknowledge this wasn't the ideal scenario. We do apologize for any inconvenience or confusion, but remember, the genesis of all of this was to increase instructional time for our students, something many in this community want to see, and is something we're still fully committed to. Next, on a somewhat related note, I wanted to take this time to bring up something we as a community can sometimes strive to do better at. Occasionally, when there are questions or concerns within our schools, the question may best be directed at the respective school's principal. I'm not saying not to write to the superintendent. Sometimes that's the appropriate channel. However, with this transportation issue, many, not all, inbound questions were based on information parents found on social media and were looking for clarification. In trying to eliminate the bottleneck of responses, sometimes a specific school question can be directed towards the principal's office instead. And lastly, on a different note, to update the community on the superintendent search, the board met with our consultant, Ms. Hellowa, this past Saturday morning and examined the credentials and experience of all the candidates who applied for the position. Together, the board selected 6 candidates for first-round interviews, and we are looking to hold those interviews next week. We'd like to thank everyone who gave us their perspectives on the survey and during the input sessions, which helped us determine which candidates would make the best fit for our district. That information was also a tremendous help as we wrote the interview questions for this first round, and we'll continue relying on your input throughout this process. And with that, I turn it over to Mary Beth Kovacs.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. Before we jump into transportation, I'd like to first report, in accordance with New Jersey's Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act, the results of all HIB-related investigations to date. There was one case reported and investigated at Old Farmers, and it was unfounded. There were 0 reports received from the other schools, so in total, I have 0 founded case of HIBs to report. Next, I'd like to really begin with celebrations. We had a successful school opening, and I want to take a moment to acknowledge all of the people who worked behind the scenes to get everything ready for the arrival of our students. Building and grounds, custodians, secretaries, office staff and administrative assistants, the business office staff, the technology department, our director of curriculum and instruction and special education, human resources, the transportation team, our administrative team, teachers, nurses, specialists, child study teams, and related staff. If people think that schools only work 10 months, if you're an educator, you know that doesn't happen. So the amount of work that's done over the summer months to prepare for a new school year is nothing short of miraculous. We have the best, and I want to make sure that I'm thanking all of them. Next, I'd like to share that we're reinstating a part of the Gifted and Talented program at Long Valley Middle School, specifically the cycle class that's called Enrichment G&T Personal Inquiry. The former teacher who had taught that class retired in June, and we're in the process of hiring staff so we can run this inquiry-based class again this year. More information will follow once the staff members are approved. We have additional good news. Tonight, we will have a hand-carried motion to approve a draft contract so that we can initiate negotiations with the township for a Class 3 officer. If we can agree on an MOA with the township, this would be an additional officer that can be hired, adding to the security team in our schools. And I think we can all agree how very vital that is. We've transitioned to a new food service, and so far, it seems to be a successful change. I hope your children are enjoying the lunches being provided by Maschio's. This evening, the board will be approving our K-8 curriculum in all areas of English language arts, or you might know it as ELA, and mathematics for all of our levels. The units of study are updated to reflect the new New Jersey student learning standards, and the math units also reflect our Eureka Squared math program for the elementary grades. I want to thank Mrs. Russo and the teachers who worked diligently this summer to revise the curriculum and to create these new units of study. And as an update on our referendum projects, I will be honest with you and tell you we were sweating it. For anyone who has dealt with contractors, you know the challenges it presents, but we were able to open the schools on time, and the continued work will be done during off hours. I want to specifically thank Katie DeRiso, our business administrator, and John Mizuko, our head of facilities and grounds, for their tireless efforts this summer and their continuing efforts as we move along through the various stages of the work. And now I'd like to address the biggest challenge of the start of the school year, and that is transportation. Let me clearly state that this had nothing to do with our head of transportation, our transportation department, or our wonderful bus drivers. We know how very important they all are. I want to extend my sincerest apologies for the confusion surrounding the transportation schedules. As the president said, the former superintendent created these schedules, but really had not anticipated the unforeseen challenges. Please know that our team has been working diligently to address the issues, and these changes, while beneficial in the long run, have required us to fine-tune the logistics. It is common to experience minor fluctuations at the start of a school year, particularly when you're coordinating 35 buses with new start and end times, but I also realize that you as families suffered the consequences. I want to reiterate that we're providing an additional 15 minutes of academic instruction in our elementary schools, which we are 100% committed to. This time is being created by arriving 10 minutes earlier and gaining 5 minutes through efficiency of transitional times within each school. And I want to reassure everyone that this is not being taken away from lunch or recess. We still have a full half hour for lunch and a full half hour for recess. Again, I apologize for any frustration this situation may have caused. Please know that I'm committed to improving communication and addressing issues proactively. My goal is always to keep students safe, to support our children, families, and staff effectively with respect and compassion, and to strengthen the relationship between the district and the community. And finally, I want to thank the board members. They've been collaborative, responsive, and wonderful partners as we've worked through not only issues that we faced, but all aspects of running a high-achieving school district. And that concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. Moving on to correspondence. This month we have emails from M. Catano, N. Eckert, R. Lacaruba, J. Datino, K. Misano, A. Kozak, N. Delorio, G. Giorgiani, J. Coladarsi, Y. Nagel, W. Campbell, D. Delaney, J. Flaherty, and V. Catano. And I apologize if I mispronounce anybody's names. And moving on to committee reports. Are there any committee reports?
Yes.
Education.
Education. Good evening. The Education Committee met on Tuesday, September 3rd at 1:00 p.m. at the Board Office of Washington Township Schools. In attendance was Cindy Ruggiero, Carmine, Lindsay, Isabel, and also in attendance our Superintendent, Mary Beth, Debbie Russo, and Carol Conicelli. Members discussed a successful opening of the schools. One child even wanted to go to school on Saturday. A board member asked how doors at LVMS could open at 8:30 a.m. and students be expected to be in their homerooms by 8:30. The answer is staff members begin their day at 8:30, so the doors will open at that time, and homeroom does run until 8:49. Mrs. Russo reviewed the new 2023 versus 2016 English Language Arts and Mathematics New Jersey Learning Standards that will be up for adoption by the full board on September 10th agenda. Mathematic updates. Data literacy standards have been separated by the state. Money and using word problems has been brought back. Kindergartners will know the values of a quarter, nickel, dime, etc. The new Eureka Math 2 program at the elementary level was discussed and how it will make a difference in the district. Year 1, we will collect baseline data. Year 2, the cohort trends can be analyzed for growth and gaps in learning, and the district can make curricular tweaks as necessary. Each year, data will be collected to determine evidence of student growth and achievement. C, the upper grades have advanced, quote, plus standards in algebra and geometry. D, the district is planning additional professional development and coaching in October, led by Dave Jones. Number 2, English language arts update. Using 5 pillars of instruction in phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. District resources support the teaching in each of the areas. B, some of the redundant standards have been cleaned up. C, speaking and listening standards have not changed. D, the language domain is a district priority. E, cursive writing is taught in 3rd grade. The district begins implementing the teaching of handwriting in kindergarten. Number 3, the district would like to celebrate the teachers and Mrs. Russo for completing a tremendous amount of work, digging into standards, putting together the resources, and revising the curriculum in ELA and math. Number 3, we discussed 8th grade graduation versus promotion. Members discussed the reasoning behind a, quote, promotion ceremony versus, quote, graduation for the 8th grade students. Members would like further history and research on the past practices and would like to make recommendations for the future ceremonies at Long Valley Middle School. It's just a name change. The PAUSE program. Data has already been gathered from students, staff, and families. There are mixed feelings reflecting on the preliminary work. The plan is to monitor and adjust each year. The LVMS administration, along with the teachers, are making recommendations for this year. Phys ed practice, changing for classes. Changing for physical education class is a practice, not a policy. Board members feel it is an outdated practice that needs to change. The practice of changing is used for hygiene purposes. Suggestion was made that students come to school in gym-type clothing on gym day, then change after class. One of the reasons for having change of practice for changing after class is so students bring their dirty clothes home at the end of the day rather than the dirty clothes staying in the lockers for a week. Students should still be given the option to change before and after class. A member brought up a discussion about the dress code policy review. More information will be collected and recommendations will be made. Tag program. A member would like to assess the K-5 program. Is the content for the gifted children differentiated? Yes. Daily lessons should be a challenge to students with, quote, different work rather than giving them more work. How are the parents of the students who do not qualify for the program being notified? Are we missing students who may qualify for the program in different areas? For instance, students with IEPs, ELLs, etc. Data will be collected and analyzed and recommendations will be made. Additional recommendations can be made while creating action steps as part of our WTS strategic plan. Number 6, strategic plan. A 3 to 5 year plan was discussed, tying the curricular resources to budget cycles. Reading resources, MTSS, co-teaching, early childhood education, and ELA are the main priorities. Number 7, quote, Developing the Whole Child in a Digital Age is set for Thursday, October 17th at 7 o'clock. It was changed from the original date because of Rosh Hashanah, in observance of Rosh Hashanah. This program that we will see on that night is a phenomenal one, and I invite every parent to come and listen to what Denise has to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy. Finance and Facilities?
Finance and Facilities Committee met yesterday. In attendance were Lindsay, Jess, John, Mary Beth, Katie, Stephanie, and myself. The committee began by discussing the ongoing referendum capital improvements across the district, starting with the Cuccinella parking lot. Unfortunately, due to the unseasonable amount of rain we received over the course of the summer, we were unable to complete this project by the substantial completion date, which was the start of the school year, and it was scheduled to be completed on September 7th, but again, unfortunately due to the weather this past weekend, it had to be pushed back. Unfortunately, in order to excavate enough of the subgrade to prevent the parking lot from buckling due to spongy ground, which is what happened originally, the contractor had to excavate, and this is not an exaggeration, 1 million pounds of dirt, and had trouble finding places to put it because any place he wanted to drive those fully loaded 20-yard dump trucks, they would have sunk into the mud. In any case, they're scheduled to start working this Thursday on the 12th after school is dismissed and there are no after-school activities present on the small lots, and be completely finished with all the paving and striping by this Saturday. We also discussed the Flocktown Cosman roof. The contractor ordered and is waiting for the metal sheets to arrive before they can complete the flashing and the coping around the perimeter of the building. This work is projected to be completed from the 16th to the 25th of this month. The committee then discussed the upcoming referendum STEM space improvements throughout the district. The committee reviewed a request we received from Dr. Marangon to remove the STEM space, which was originally planned to be in the Flocktown Library, to a classroom, but the committee decided to keep the original plans for the space to go in the library. The committee then discussed the finance agenda items you see on tonight's agenda, and then we discussed the transportation issues from the first few days of school that Mary Beth discussed, and the steps taken by the district to resolve them. Additionally, we're investigating the implementation of additional controls to prevent recurrence of those issues in the future. Recently, the district did a test with online payments via mealtime for preschool tuition. It was successful. We still had some parents choosing to pay via check due to the fairly hefty 5% credit card fee. But due to the success, we're going to begin rolling that process out for online payments district-wide, and we will still have the option to pay via check if you'd like to avoid that credit card fee. Next, Mary Beth presented some ideas on early intervention, recommendations in support of district goal number 1. Some are likely going to be planned for next year's budget. Others will likely be incorporated into action plans associated with the future multi-year district goals. Then the district discussed stipends for the Gifted and Talented program. As a way to bring back the program, Mary Beth gave details on the enrichment in her remarks this evening. Then we discussed this current superintendent's contract as an interim. We're currently paying for 4 days a week, and we discussed adding a 5th day to the interim superintendent contract, which will have to be approved by the county office before it can be implemented. Finally, and again, this was mentioned by the superintendent in her opening remarks, the committee reviewed the Class 3 shared services agreement with the township that was added as an addendum to tonight's agenda. Specifically, it's number 30. I'll read it later when I move that motion. This is the next step in approximately a year and a half's worth of work to continue to work to upgrade security throughout the district. Subject to questions, that is the Finance and Facilities report.
Thank you. Communications governance?
Governance met on August 29th. In attendance was Rob Isabel, John Old Mixon, Mary Beth, and myself, and it was simply to touch base with NJ SBA with regard to our transition from Strauss Esme to NJSBA to see where they are and what else we need to do to complete that task.
Thank you. And moving on to public comment on agenda items. If anyone has a public comment on agenda items, please approach the microphone, state your name, address, and you'll have 3 minutes to provide any comment.
Hi, hi. Thanks for being here today. My name's Warren Campbell. I'm at 6 Lois Court. I'd like to address the agenda item regarding the approval of the district's English and math curriculum. Before I dive into that, though, I just wanted to commend the board for reinstating the gifted and talented class. It's great news. Also, by the way, the Eureka Math. Thank God we finally have homework in elementary school. That's a huge win. We really appreciate that. So while I understand the importance of approving a curriculum that aligns with state standards, I still have some serious concerns about how this curriculum addresses the needs of those gifted and talented students. I'm sure you've seen my voluminous correspondence with the superintendent and with the board. And as early as today, or as recently as today, Mrs. Russo indicated that the district is still working on the plans for advanced learners as part of a broader strategic initiative. And some of those questions are unanswered. And, you know, the curriculum includes the accommodations that we make for gifted and talented students. So if you're going to approve that today, I think those questions should be answered. You know, I just wanted to say, like, I don't know how this happened, that we got into the school, you know, like the gifted and talented teacher retired, and then we started the school year with this plan to basically have no gifted and talented program. We were just going to, like, disperse it amongst the various classes. That's what school districts do when they want to say they met the legal requirement but not actually offer any gifted and talented program. So again, thank you very much for doing the right thing and reinstating that program. We should probably codify that in the curriculum so that, you know, our administrators at the school are held, you know, they have to meet that. It's not optional. Thanks very much. I really very much appreciate all of your time. I recognize that you're volunteers and you spend a ton of time working to make our schools better. So thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify 2 things. First of all, Mrs. Russo, when she wrote about adding things, she was talking about the reinstatement of the program, but didn't necessarily want to do it until we announced it tonight. So I think that's why her email was a little vague. I don't want to speak for her, but that's my assumption. And secondly, I just wanted to make it very clear that this was not a decision made by Mrs. Russo or by the principal or assistant principal. It was made by the former superintendent. So once we realized what had happened and that it had not been filled, the board was extremely responsive and quick to act so that we could reinstate it. So I just wanted to make those 2 points very clear. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comment on agenda items?
Hi, my name is Ben Johnston, 7 Chestnut Street. As a graduate of this school, and I did the Gifts and Talent program. I think it's really great that you guys are bringing it back, so kudos to you. But also, with regards to like the new English and math course that's gonna, I guess, get implemented, how do you guys plan to address the kind of like issue I feel like that our district has compared to other districts with regard to like preparedness? Because in my personal experience, I go to Morris County School of Technology, which is from all across Morris County. A lot of my friends, their middle school, like those experiences were a lot more, I guess, maybe in detail than ours. So like that, like difference in ability is really there. And so I feel like my lived experience kind of outweighs like whatever you guys have said about it being better. That's, I guess, my question to restate that.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to address it now? Or typically, just so everybody knows, a normal scenario is we take public comment and address all of the questions at the end of it. Occasionally, we'll kind of modify that, but that's the typical standard. But feel free to address that now. Okay. Are there any other questions on agenda items? Okay, thank you.
Do you mind telling me your name again? Thank you, Ben, for comments. And I think they're really extremely valid, and I appreciate you coming here to discuss them. So a few things I want to talk about in the short time that I've been here and that what I've seen is, one, I think we made a tremendous movement to Eureka squared math, which I think is really going to increase rigor, and it will make a really big difference long term, both short term and long term, I should say, because I really think we're going to see results very quickly. And thank you, sir, for pointing out that you're noticing the difference already. The other thing that we did this year, and I can't take credit for this, this had already happened, was that we now have 2 levels of accelerated math at the middle school, which allows you to go on a different trajectory through high school, different pathways. So once you get into high school, you can either take, you still have the option regardless of the pathway you take in middle school, because we don't want to track students in middle school, so to speak. But we want to give them the opportunity that if they want to get to the highest levels of math, once they get to the high school or IB, AP courses, that they have that ability if they so choose. So I think that's a huge celebration that was adopted by the board, I want to say last year, towards the end of last year. Does that sound right? And then in regards to English language arts, that now is our focus, and I think the Education Committee spoke to the way that we're working to really develop the ELA program. And when I talk about ELA, I'm talking about the full umbrella of reading and writing, speaking, listening, forensics, all of those things. So that will be part of our strategic plan so that we could budget for it and start the work this year so that you'll really start to see the difference, again, for next year, because this year's already, the money, so to speak, is already spent. So what we would have to do then is budget for it so that it's part of our strategic plan to really start to make a difference. So I know it didn't necessarily serve you well, although I think it sounds as though you're being very successful where you are right now. But we want to continue to grow the programs, and in the short time I'm here, I'm hoping to be able to get us on that path. So thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Approval of minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the August 13th meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay. And moving on to education, can I get somebody to move education?
Sure. I'd like to move items 1 through 4.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a quick point. I just like to, I'm not sure who I'm asking this question to, if it's Mary Beth or Ms. Russo, but, Mr. Warren made a great point. We've been in communication, Ms. Russo and Superintendent. So what needs to be done to solidify the TAG program in the future so something like this doesn't happen, so there isn't a situation where, basically there's 30 kids that weren't going to receive the services they had last year, and everyone recognized that, and we're doing everything we can to correct that, and it seems like it's going to be corrected to everyone's satisfaction. But how do we solidify that program so it's a non-issue and it's part of the program and it cannot be changed without a board vote or something more substantial, not just having a teacher retire and then all of a sudden there's 30 kids who aren't getting the services they desire? Sure, yeah.
I think it's a great idea to create a policy. So if we would have to look to see what we already have, and then we could just obviously add it, and that would be a perfect way to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we vote to pass the curriculum now without that policy, I guess, we just have to make that commitment to the community that work gets done. So this happens, the policy becomes adopted, and then in the future
So let me just clarify if it's okay. The ELA and mathematics curriculum and units of study are not specific. They're addressing the ELA and mathematics New Jersey student learning standards. That's different from the gifted and talented code and mandates. So you can address those mandates differently and outside of. They should be also embedded in the ELA and mathematics units of study, but there is an additional course that we want to preserve, so to speak, and that we could do outside of the curriculum, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So that we could do as part of the policy. Does that make sense?
If you're asking me, the document that's on the agenda has in it the accommodations for gifted and talented students and
But I think,
But if
again,
you look at the document posted, it said, and click through 8th grade ELA, it says, and gifted and talented is part of that.
so
That's what you're approving.
I think we're talking about, again, two different things. I think we're talking about units of study versus courses. So if you're talking about courses, the courses are not listed in the curriculum.
No, definitely, yeah, I agree with that, but if you click on the document in the agenda that outlines the curriculum, and you look at it, part of that document includes how you're going to deliver services for students identified as gifted and talented. And that says nothing about a gifted and talented class, like, or a gifted and talented course. It doesn't say it. All it says actually is the opposite, is that we're going to embed additional challenges within the core curriculum, basically the other option.
So in lieu of holding up approval of this curriculum, can we make a commitment, I guess it would go under the education committee, to look at existing policy? If we don't have a sufficient policy, create a new one?
Policy would also go under governance, actually. So it should be discussed in both, but.
Okay,
not
that
to
could be
sidetrack
discussed in
you,
both.
But we never did an approval for executive session minutes, and I just don't want to skip that. I only heard regular minutes. Did I miss something?
We did approval of minutes.
For regular minutes. I didn't hear.
Okay, I usually don't distinct, I mean, if you would like me to go back, and I've just said the August 13th meeting minutes. I wasn't specific on regular or executive session, I just said the August 13th minutes, which is what I've done multiple board meetings. If it's an issue, I can go back and address it.
I'm only saying it because there were abstentions, so I don't know if we need to be specific on the abstentions are both the executive and the regular or not. It's just a simple procedural question.
Should we go back and readdress the approval of minutes under Robert's rules of, or is it okay as is?
I'm okay with it.
Would the abstentions even change?
No, I wasn't here, so I abstained.
John wasn't here, so the abstention carries for both bullet points.
The only
I
one
think
that
we're good.
doesn't is me, is
Right.
because I was here for executive session, but
but
I
not for
couldn't, I had to leave for the regular. So-
Okay. So the proper way to address this, are we going to finish going through education, or do we have to go back to approval of minutes? Okay. So we can address it right now? Okay. Specific to executive session meeting minutes. You know what? Let's go back and do it all over again. Approval of minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the August 13th regular meeting minutes?
So moved.
And do we have all in favor? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Secondly, can I have make a motion to approve the August 13th executive session meeting minutes?
Second.
I realize that I didn't ask for abstentions.
Yeah. So are there abstentions for the regular meeting minutes?
Are there abstentions for the regular meeting minutes?
Yes,
Okay.
abstain.
Okay. The August 13th executive session meeting minutes. Can I make a motion to approve the August 13th executive session meeting minutes?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay. Are we good?
Yes.
Okay. Going back to the point raised about talented and gifted, I guess it's item number 2, and the result of policy. If it's going to fall under education and both governance, that's fine. I think collectively, I don't know if we do have an existing policy, if we need to review it. If we don't have one, it would be, I think, in everybody's best interest to codify it.
We do have one. It might
Okay.
need some updating.
Okay. So I guess what my point is, in lieu of holding up the entire curriculum approval, can we, I guess, as a board, commit to reviewing that policy and make changes as necessary?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Does anybody have any other discussion on that item? Okay. So we had discussion, so we need to do a roll call, right? Okay, roll call.
Items 1 through 4. Mrs. DeSico?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Mrs. Ruggiero?
Yes.
Mr. Capograsso?
Yes.
Mrs. Succi?
Yes.
Mr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mr. Oldmixon?
Yes. Next is finance. Can I have somebody please move finance?
Finance would like to move item number 5 on tonight's agenda, a motion to accept with gratitude the following contribution $1,468 from the Long Valley Middle School PTA to be used at the Long Valley Middle School Growing with Proficiency Spanish Teacher Grant.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. DeSica.
Abstain.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
Mrs. Ruggiero.
Yes.
Mr. Capagrosso.
Yes.
Mrs. Succi.
Yes.
Mr. Holly.
Yes.
Mr. Waskis.
Yes.
Mr. Oldmixon.
Yes.
Finance would like to move Finance would like to move items number 6 through 16, as well as number 30 on tonight's agenda. Board members have item 30 on a separate sheet in front of them, but for anyone else, I will read item number 30 on tonight's agenda out loud. Motion to approve a draft shared services agreement with the Washington Township and initiate negotiations for a Class 3 officer pending review by the Board Attorney and Washington Township.
And we have the second.
Second.
All in favor?
Nope.
I'm sorry.
Roll call.
I'm sorry. I'm all shelled here. Roll call.
Mrs. DeSica.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
Mrs. Ruggiero.
Yes.
Mr. Capagrosso.
Yes.
Mrs. Succi.
Yes.
Mr. Holly.
Yes.
Mr. Waskis.
Yes.
Mr. Oldmixon.
Yes. Next, can we have somebody please move personnel?
Personnel would like to move items 17 through 29 on the agenda.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. DeSica.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
Mrs. Ruggiero.
Yes.
Mr. Capagrosso.
Yes.
Mrs. Succi.
Yes.
Mr. Holly.
Yes.
Mr. Waskis.
Yes.
Mr. Oldmixon.
Yes. Okay, next is unfinished business. Does anybody have any unfinished business? Does anybody have any new business?
Can I just ask, since we're at the eve of 9/11, that we just do just a silence to remember, since we're all here together, and it was something that impacted us globally.
Sure. Did you want to lead us in the moment of silence, or did you want me to
No,
do it?
Mr. President, that's all you.
Okay, at this moment in time, I'd like everybody to show respect for the events that happened on 9/11, and if we could have a moment of silence. Thank you very much. And is there any other new business?
I had a comment. I just wanted the community to know what type of fantastic job the superintendent is doing. She's currently contracted for a 4-day work week, and she's working 7 days a week, I assure you. We talk to her on a routine basis every day of the week. She's got her hands full coming into this. The transitional period has been difficult with the referendum, and obviously with the transportation and other issues that she's dealt with, but she's worked great, and we're very lucky to have her. So I just wanted to say that.
Thanks, John. And I agree, and I've actually shared this with you before on Saturday when the board convened for the superintendent search, and we were going over candidates. I think Mary Beth was actually talked about probably more than anybody because we really appreciate her and all of her contributions to this district, and we kind of held her as the benchmark because we really feel very grateful for her and all of her contributions to this school district. So I echo everything that John said, and I think that the full board really appreciates all your hard work. Anybody have any other new business? And moving on to public comment. If you have any public comment, please approach the microphone, state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
How you doing? Joe Coladarsi, Long Valley, New Jersey. So I had a whole thing written. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but when students, so my children are going to a private school. They're going to Immaculate Conception. We did the paperwork in June of 2023. When a student goes to a private school, they need to notify, the family needs to notify the resident district about the child going to a private school. That resident district can decide whether they're going to transport a student or pay what's called aid in lieu. Aid in lieu is roughly $1,100 per student. I did that in June of 2023. There's record of it. From that point, I didn't hear anything from anybody until the end of this past July, when Sussex County Co-op reached out via letter with other transportation forms. So not having received that in the past, I called Sussex Co-op and asked what this was about, and they said it's the same packet that they sent me last summer. I never received a packet. So evidently, that's what's called a B7T form. That's a transportation voucher. That transportation voucher is what gets our family paid. My family was not paid. Never received the form. It is the obligation of the district to notify me. I was not notified. Sending something in a letter from a third party, call it, is not notifying me. Nobody reached out. Nobody contacted me when it wasn't received. Nobody did a thing. I just didn't end up getting paid. I didn't think anything of it because you don't get paid till January. And my wife normally takes care of that stuff. She thought maybe I took care of it. So we didn't even realize we didn't get paid at first. Fast forward, and we're in this situation. The bigger problem now is both of my kids were on 2 B8T forms, which is a certification form from the private school. So our district administration had proof my kids were going there. I filled the application, but nobody still thought to say, hey, Joe, you never did this. We can't pay you until you do. Lastly, after talking to a number of business administrators.
30 seconds, just.
Yep. Not one of them said that they encumber funds when they finally get the B7 voucher. The proper way to do it would be to encumber funds when the initial application is received. That apparently wasn't done, according to our business administrator. So I'm still going to be fighting this, and I'm going to get $2,200 back. I just want to let you know. Thanks.
Thank you.
Warren Campbell, 6 Lois Court. I just want to say about the transportation thing, I very much appreciate the longer school day. Mistakes happen, the logistics is hard to figure out, and the superintendent switch, the timing wasn't great. I feel great that we're doing what we can to make sure our kids get the most rigorous academic program they can. That's what I want from my school. So thank you for that. I don't just complain. You guys are doing great.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Okay. Regarding Joe's comment, I don't know if anybody here wanted to address that. I'm not too familiar with the inner workings of
Joe,
Aid and Lou, but
I just wanted to say, when my children attended Willow, I had this issue. I actually had moved from Annandale to Long Valley, and I went down, and there was not a problem. I'm happy to, kind of help and whatever, but I did not receive the form, and I did have that exact thing happen to me, and they did make it right.
The problem is apparently after the fiscal year, and the sad part is the worst thing that can happen to this district is owning up to the mistake and paying the $2,200, and the very most getting a finding on the next audit. And I'm willing to bet that no auditor is going to even put a finding out. That's it.
I hope that's not true, and I'm sure that everybody's gonna.
Didn't we have a letter from our auditor already about this very issue? Explicitly stating we shouldn't take the course of action proposed? And a letter from our attorney?
I was going to say.
I just
Also
think
supporting that?
I just think because of the time frame of which you said anything, because my sympathy is with you, but it's a while, right? And that's the issue, right? Because that becomes a budgetary issue for everybody involved.
From my perspective, it's clear. I don't think anyone can argue that he is owed this money, and he never received a form from a third-party co-op that we that we contract with. So that's the issue. He's owed this money. So I think there has to be some kind of accommodation for next year's
think, John,
budget to put this.
My point was that
Yeah.
when this happened to me, I brought it and it was immediately remedied. I think that the issue is the time lapse,
It must have been that.
right? I'm happy to investigate it with you and look into it with you. And I did see your emails, and I'm happy to look. But you know, I have a lot of faith in Rob and him. You know, with the finance committee, and if he's looked into it, and there's a time issue with budgets, it's, you know, but we'll definitely, if there's anything we can do, obviously we're going to do it.
Is there anything else? Okay. Let's see. Moving on to district distinctions. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay. I wanted to mention that the NJEA Review magazine had a full page on Old Farmers Road School in their September edition. The article was titled "Multilingual Learners Bring Languages and Cultures to Life," which showcased our district's multilingual students. In addition to input from Principal Hawkswell and second grade teacher Mrs. Searles, it also featured quotes from six students and one parent. The district would also like to take a moment to recognize Sarah Cipoletti, a co-chair of our district CPAG, for all of her work creating and running a successful Reading Buddies program this summer. The program ran 2 days a week at the Washington Township Library throughout the summer, pairing up kids of all ages to practice their reading and listening skills. All that attended the program agree that it was a wonderful way to keep kids motivated to read through the summer break. Thanks much to Sarah for organizing and volunteering so much of her time to helping our eager readers this summer. Which is also a segue into my last distinction. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank all of our parents and the PTO and PTAs for all their hard work and time they dedicate to keeping our schools great. Public education has a lot of moving parts, more so than I ever imagined prior to joining the board. And I feel like the PTOs in our town are like the glue that holds it all together and formulates that bond and personal relationships between families and educators. And lastly, I would like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
All in favor?